takes us straight to your Twitter questions, and we'll start on that subject of goalkeepers. Who should England have in goal in the World Cup? Well, Jamie, you have your say first.
Well, I think sadly, it's between Pickford and Butland. When I say sadly, is that the two young goalkeepers who haven't got much experience. I think it's very difficult to put Joe Hart in. One, because he's not playing, and he's not playing very well when he has played for West Ham, when he was on loan at Torino last year. And you look at that list of names there. I mean, Nick Pope for Burnley, actually. I mean, watching him at Anfield early in the season, he's done really well, keeping Tom Heaton out, who was in the England squad of late. And that is the toss-up between Pickford. Now, Butland, I think I'd slightly go more Pickford than, but I think Butland, I've seen him make some big mistakes. I mean, the one obviously at Leicester. Listen, that can happen. I mean, he made a really poor one against, I think it was Coventry in the Cup in Mark Hughes' maybe last game or one before that. And I think that is a really, really tough decision for Gareth Southgate. And I remember going to the World Cup with Capello, and he left the decision till, I think, the day before, or maybe even the day of the game, when he picked the goalkeeper. David James was there, I think Rob Green was in goal. I'm not sure who the third keeper was.
None of them.
Was it? Well, I'm not sure who the keeper was. None of the keepers knew who was going to go and goal. And then Robert Green made that huge error. And then David James went straight in the next game. And a World Cup is not... You don't sort of rotate or sit another goalkeeper. You know, it's like that... So the fact that players didn't know, and then you have to change your goalkeeper the game after, it was all wrong. So I think Gareth Southgate and Jack Butland's actually come out in the press and said this. The goalkeepers would like to know who was the number one.
Didn't he? It's a massive problem when you're rotating your goalkeepers. It is a massive, massive problem. When you're doing it, I've seen it with Liverpool this season, Mignolet and Carragher. So when I was at United, there was a period when I think Roy Carroll and Tim Howard were being rotated. You just never felt safe or comfortable. You always wanted to know who your goalkeeper was. They are they steady everybody in the stadium. I've always said a goalkeeper can unnerve a whole stadium if the goalkeeper himself is nervous. The goalkeeper has to be steady. He can and if you're looking at the decision of Pickford or Butland, and I don't know who Gareth will pick, and to be honest with you, I don't envy his decision.
Could you not consider Joe Hart? Because the striking thing on that list was that he had 75 appearances for England, and the next highest was 8.
You could consider Joe Hart, and to be fair, if he gets back into the team, then he has to be a real consideration, because a World Cup is not for messing around with in terms of, trialling a goalkeeper. It's not. And you look at sort of Pickford, he's never been to a tournament, and you might say, well, OK, but he's young, and a World Cup is a brutal place to learn. It really is. You think about how unforgiving it is, the travelling, the expectation, the adrenaline, the thing. Butland's been to a couple of tournaments, he's sat on the sidelines, he's watched, he's seen how it can be and how difficult it can be. I would say I'd edge towards Butland based upon the fact that just let Pickford watch a tournament. He's got a talent, don't kill him in the first tournament. And that's the only thing that I would say. But Pickford's a big talent, but he's got some maturing to do, and you can see it in there. And that's not being critical of him. He's a young goalkeeper, he's going to make mistakes, he learns on the job. And it's a harsh environment, the Premier League.
Well, this one might come back to that point on Joe Hart. As we ask, how important is it for England players to be playing week in, week out in the Premier League to be able to do well in the World Cup?
It's important, but it's getting to the stage where a lot of them aren't playing, so how important is it? Because Gareth Southgate has to pick a squad. He'll probably have an idea who he thinks his best squad is, who his team is, and if one of them isn't playing, he's going to have to take him or play him, because I always think it's a stupid thing to say when England managers come in and say, oh, I can't pick him because he's not playing. It'll come back to haunt you, that, because you'll end up picking someone who isn't playing because, for whatever reason, he's not in his club side or he's coming back for injury, and these things happen. I don't think you can ever put yourself in that position as an international manager and say, I only pick players when they do this, or only pick players when they do this. I think you just keep your mouth shut and you decide what squad you've got.
I agree with Jamie there. It's impossible. Because Rashford's not playing, Shaw's not playing, Cale's not playing, Stones is not playing, Lallana's not playing every week.
He's in the last squad, and Loftus-Cheek as well.
Loftus-Cheek, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's not playing every single week. Rose is not playing every single week. You look at the players there that are on that list that would be in, to be fair, Gareth Southgate's first 11, let alone in their actual, in the squad. There are so many that aren't playing. It's a big worry. It is a big worry to think that they're going to go into the tournament without football. You could argue, well, OK, they'll be fresh. You could argue that England players in the past have been tired, apparently, going into tournaments. I've never used that as an excuse myself in terms of thinking that way. But what I would say is that, to be fair, that if they're undercooked and they haven't got the game time, that's a real problem as well. So, yeah, fitness is one thing. being fresh is another, but being undercooked is also a consideration.
I know you like to stay in your cliques when you were playing with England, but what about this question? Which opposition club were you excited to play with when you went away with England? Gary?
Which means opposition.
So when you went there as a Manchester United player, who were you excited to be joining up with from other clubs?
The one standout was Rooney when he was at Everton when I was playing. Gascoigne, Shearer. Yeah, Gascoigne, Rooney and Shearer, I would say, were the outstanding. You know, Shearer and Gascoigne in '96. Tony Adams, worth mentioning. I would say Rooney when he broke in from Everton.
Jamie?
Probably say John Terry, just thinking of players who you played against. And as I said, I didn't probably play that many games alongside John Terry, but I always looked at the players in my position, who even you could pick up things when you were with England, and how good were these players who you were competing with the position. I mean, another one you'd have to say, I mean, I played with Lampard with under 21, so I knew him well. I think the other one was, you know, the outstanding midfield player really there. Because I've played with Steve, who was probably playing with Paul Scholes, and there's someone, you know, top midfield player.
Okay.
Something to go on?
No, I thought you were in mid-flow.
Thanks for that.
You neither mentioned each other, of course. Slightly different, this. After recent criticism from players and coaches biting back at pundits, something you talked about earlier, Gary, for their comments and analysis, do you feel their reactions are justified? Jamie, do you want to start us on that?
I have no I mean, you mentioned earlier in the show, you don't know why they get bothered about it all, but I have no problem with a manager having a pop back at me or a player, because I think we give our opinions, we're quite critical. If someone's critical of our analysis or punditry, you have to take that. We can't ever go back or say they shouldn't get involved. We're okay giving our criticisms on here. So I think you have to take the criticism. It has took on a life of its own now, punditry. Where, you know, it's all you hear managers talk about at times in press conferences. And I also agree with Gary when you say, if I was a manager, I wouldn't give a pundit the idea that he bothered me with what he said or what he said was important. So I'd try and not react. But I can only take myself back to being a player. And whenever I was criticised, it probably wasn't at the level as now as many shows and social media. And it would affect you, it'd annoy you. And you'd remember who said it. And I still don't forget it. And I'm sure there'll be players, maybe some of them Chelsea players or Everton players today thinking, won't forget some of the criticism we give, but that's our job. It's not all about criticism. A lot of the time it's about praise. But when I was a player, no one likes being criticised, but that's the job that we have to do, and we have to accept criticism if it comes our way.
Well, there are a few points to this, as Jamie says. As a player, as a manager, you talked about this criticism that you had at Valencia, but as a player, you had it right at the very start. The famous Alan Hansen.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, you know, what he said was that you couldn't win anything with us. You know, us playing in the team, you couldn't win anything. That's probably the biggest criticism you could ever have.
Do you remember watching that at the time?
Yeah, absolutely, because it was the first game of the season. It's the first game we'd all broke in, and this was a guy who, to be fair, had huge respect and credibility. He won 8 Premier League, 8 Championship titles, Division 1 titles. So he was the ultimate in terms of knowing how to win a title. And something like that says something like that. But then I never once, picking up on your point, I never once ever during my career thought it was a good idea or a good thing to take on a pundit or even give them the time of day or even make them feel like they were important. So, I mean, what I would say now is that, to be fair, the media conferences that happen, the press conferences that happen, the first thing that happens is that the managers are getting put to them, so-and-so said this about you, what do you think? And the managers, to be fair, are reacting to it in a game. I don't know whether they want to react or whether they're just emotional or whether they just think it's a good... I don't know. But certainly, for one thing, we can't complain about people being critical of us. What I would say is we never go into any single game thinking, I'm going to criticise him today. Never once. Never, ever once. And that is absolutely...
I have done now and again.
Oh, honestly, I've never once
There's always a few you don't like.
I've never once thought I'm going to criticise that team or I'm not going to criticise... I've never seen that. So the idea that we set off in a game thinking we're going to criticise them is just not true. We want to be surprised by what we see. We want to see a great game.
Do you think sometimes you're ready to criticise some more than others?
I think, to be fair, if there's been a team that have been letting their standards... To be fair, what do we normally criticise? Is that critical of Jordan Pickford, what I've just done tonight, or is that an observation? One person's criticism, another person's observation. Like, you can't argue that's coaching. Don't do that in the future. What's the difference? The idea that we're on here tonight talking about, say, for instance, Michael Keane's position or Ashley Williams' position. Now, you might say that it's going too far, but we've also got to make sure we communicate to the fan watching at home in language that he would understand. So, from that point of view, I don't buy into this idea that we set out to criticise players. But the thing is, what I would say is you can say 99 positive words, everyone will only remember the one negative. That's life, that's culture of where we're at in this country. That people forget the 99 positive things you say for one negative thing. I don't have a problem with it personally.
Do you, Jamie, ever consider the emotions of those you are criticising? Managers? Do you give managers more perhaps than players?
I think you do some. I mean, certain times someone asks you something and you react to it, and maybe at times you're emotional. And I think at times I've been like that with Liverpool. Arsenal get me that way. Not many teams do get me that emotional. Your own team does, because it affects you a little bit more. I mean, on a show like tonight, we prepared it obviously all day, so there's a bit more thought into exactly what you're going to say and what point you want to make. And I'll be honest with you, maybe I don't think about the managers or the players as much, because I actually think, well, I've always said this, when I was a player, my team was Liverpool, and I do anything for Liverpool to win or me play well. My team now is not the players I played with or managers I had. My team's Sky Sports, so I've got to do my job right in analysis, good or bad, otherwise Sky gets someone else. It's like, that's the way I see it. I've got to do my job first and keep Sky Sports happy, rather than keeping players I might bump into, managers I know a little bit. I mean, Sam Allardyce is manager of my team in the summer in Soccer Aid, so he wasn't there.
Also, a pundit never lost a football match, or never won a football match, or never scored a goal, or never ever impacted a match. I don't know why a coach inside the dressing room who's working with a group of players would even give them the time of day. I genuinely don't. I mean, we're just here to basically talk about the game in a passionate way, try and make the best that we can of it, give information that maybe people haven't seen at home, and if they have seen it, great, that's good. But to me, in terms of worrying about what a player... I mean, look, I would never, ever... I've never, ever asked for a manager, and I'm proud of this, from the moment I joined Sky, I've never asked for a manager to be sacked, and never will. Even though sometimes I've thought it privately, I thought, they need to go here, they need to change. I will never do it, because that's stepping over the line.
Do the pundits do it in Spain?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's 3 or 4 Valencia-old boys that I remember sticking a knife right in. I invited them to the training ground. Do you know what happened in Spain?
Oh, try and get them on side.
No. Seriously, 2 or 3 of the ex-Valencia players said I should be sacked in Spain. I didn't disagree with them. But I said, come down, I can learn a lot from you. Yeah. Because ultimately, they knew a lot about...
You take the team.
They knew a lot about...
It can't be any worse.
They knew a lot about the club. They knew a lot about the city. I didn't. And to be honest with you, I never saw it as being they were out of order. Never saw it as being a challenge. I never once took a pundit. I never once blamed the pundit at the end of the game. Did they come? No, they turned it down. They done something, but I saw that as a poor reflection upon them. If a manager invited me to a training ground, which has happened 2 or 3 times in the Premier League, I've always gone. And that's absolutely right. Why wouldn't you go? Because ultimately then you're going to understand more about what the coaching they do, etc.
If only people could hear the morning meeting, they would know how much you two actually check yourselves.
We hold back a lot.
Do hold back. Gary, Jamie, thank you very much.